Okay, so welcome back to part two of this feedback. So all of these suggestions or this feedback is really intended to either do one of two things. To make sure that your question is broad enough that you will find enough literature out there. And then some of the other questions, some of the other pieces of feedback like I just gave for this last question is really intended to help you narrow down the amount of articles that you'll get, because that's one of the most frustrating things about doing a literature review is either not being able to find anything that's been done out there or finding so much that you don't even know how to go through it and you just become overwhelmed. Here's two other examples that I wanted to address. So the first, and these actually came off of the same, but I thought that it would be interesting for us to just give some feedback regarding these. So, can working memory capacity be improved by rewriting memorized passages? And what effect does the amount of nursery rhymes a reader can recall have on working memory capacity? So these both seem to have to be to do with some kind of relationship between memorizing and working memory. And so I would think because we want to look at reading, and of course information processing models and working memory are part of reading, I might go a little bit broader with these questions, and I might think about what am I trying to figure out? Do I want to first explore the relationship between reading and working memory, which would be looking at some of those processing models. You could think back to 536, or if you took 514 with me, you only took 514 with me if you've been in the online cohort the whole time, and we did all the theoretical models. If you were in the hybrid or the in-person cohort but are taking 511 online, then you had 514 with Dr. Jeffries, and I'm not quite sure if you went into the theoretical models the way that we did in my class. So with both of these, I might first explore the relationship between either memorization skills and reading skills, or working memory and reading skills. But I would make these more tied to reading and more generalizable to building your knowledge base in reading. All right, so here's two examples of thinking to yourself, does the specificity matter in these? And I know this first one a lot of folks copied, and this is from my example. Does teacher modeling of schema activation strategies result in comprehension gains for fourth grade students? And how can reading self-efficacy be improved in the third grade? So the idea of specificity comes in here because I've confined them to grades, right? There was another example that I gave about sixth grade science and social studies too. So if you're going to put a grade level in your question, in terms of this assignment, that can be tricky because, again, you don't want to limit yourself to the research that's out there that matches the exact same grade level if that grade level isn't that significant. So actually, in the sample that I gave you, this first one, does the teacher modeling of schema activation strategies result in comprehension gains for fourth grade students? If that was for an actual proposal, which we were going to do the research, that would make sense because you're going to be looking at fourth grade students, right? If this, how can reading self-efficacy be improved in third grade students? If you're going to do the actual study, then it makes sense because you are going to go out there and you're going to study the fourth grade and third grade students. For the purpose of this assignment, you're looking at the literature that's already out there. So you don't necessarily want to confine yourself to just fourth grade or just third grade, because in either of these examples, grade doesn't really matter that much. In terms of, is it third grade, is it fourth grade, is it fifth grade? It would matter if it's elementary, primary, elementary, upper elementary, middle school, or high school. It might be, the question might be answered differently, but for the purpose of learning about how modeling schema activation strategies, it can influence comprehension. The idea that they're in fourth grade doesn't matter for the purpose of this assignment. So if you wanted to do something like this, you might put either for elementary school students or for students in the upper elementary grades, because this way it gives you more to look at and more to pull from in your literature review, because you'll find more studies. Somebody may have done a study with fourth and fifth graders. Somebody may have done, a study with third graders. Somebody may have done a study with, sixth. So you want to be able to include all of that work. Same thing here. Self-efficacy and reading self-efficacy be improved in third grade. Does it matter that they're third grade students? Well, if you're not going to go out and do the actual study, then for the purpose of this assignment, you may want to broaden that a little bit. So, in how can self-efficacy for reading be improved in elementary age students? That would make sense, because those strategies some of them will be the same, but some of them may be different, or recommendations or best practices may be different for elementary versus high school students. All right. So remember when you write your questions too, if you look at the examples that I gave in my post, a lot of them start with this, what is the effect, what is the relationship between, is there a correlation? Think about how you include wording like this in your sentences, because again, you don't want to make stuff so specific that you don't find anything out there, and you don't want to make it so broad that you find way too much. So thinking about, you're looking for the literature, and that's really what we do, right? And when we do research in our field, is we look for relationships. We don't necessarily find yes or no answers, but we find a lot of in the middle. So what is the relationship? We look for correlations, but it's really hard to answer things definitively. And so the way that you write your question should reflect that. So, all right. So I hope that this was helpful. Like I said, this week you're going to need to pick the question that you're going to use for your literature review, and then I've asked that you include a blurb, about a paragraph, on why you chose to explore this particular topic.